All right, here we go, right here. So real quick, we've got in the background, we've got the real snare doing like a little roll to come in, which is a nice way of smoothly bringing in the real drums. So it doesn't sound like a total shift in percussion. We just kind of, for that split second, mix the electronic drums with the real drums and have the real drums do that roll. And then when the real drums come in, it flows very nicely, sounds very natural. And then we can, make that transition smoothly. All right, let's pause right there. Okay, so first things first, this is obviously like an escalation in the song. It's definitely a big moment in the song. We're continuing to move upward, right? First things first, the drummer deserves an award for this drumming. It is actually, in my opinion, some of the best drumming I've heard. Like, I don't want to say like ever, but like genuinely, it is unbelievably good. I think it's engaging on both a technical level. He's doing all sorts of crazy hi-hat rolls, tom hits, snares that follow with the vocals, but also keep the groove. It's also really incredible on a musical level. It's fun to listen to, but it's not necessarily overwhelming. It builds the tension in the song, but doesn't like overpower the vocals necessarily. It's such a great composition. I just can't praise it enough. And ultimately, we're not quite there yet, but it does build into the heavy chorus perfectly too. And so, yeah, there's so many unique things that I could point out here. I'm not an expert drummer myself, right? Like I'm a guitarist. I've been playing guitar for 15 years. I understand drums, but I can't do everything. But I can point out a few things that are really cool. Like, for example, the snare drum doesn't consistently land on like a downbeat, but he still manages to keep a groove going. That's almost like completely counterintuitive to the way that drums work, right? I mean, the snare is typically what tells you where the downbeat is and where where the groove is, right? It's like the thing that lets you follow along. I mentioned this on Emergence during that crazy, polyrhythmic section in Emergence, how the snare is the one thing that actually anchors it. So you still feel like there is some groove happening while the kick is what's kind of going crazy. In this section, everything's going crazy. He's basically doing a drum solo and it's amazing. I mean, it really is. So let's finish out this verse just talking about the drums. Let's just start from the beginning and I'll point out the things that are interesting to me that, even if you're not a musician, you can enjoy, right? So right there, like he hits, a little triple like da 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 da. So right there, every single snare hit was basically on all of the syllable. Like every time the singer sang the same syllable. My de-esser is going to have a pain in the ass with that. Every time the singer sang the same syllable, he hits the snare drum along with him. So you see in every single da 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 da, that snare hit is just following along with that. But he's also going nuts. So that's like the obvious thing, but then he's going nuts on the hi-hat and the cymbals. So listen to your left and right ears, how he's like all of the little like and the taps and things like that from the cymbals. And then he ends it with a tom roll. It's really crazy. It's honestly some of the coolest shit I've heard. So yeah, let's keep going. Big crash there, big crash after the tom roll. Which actually, funny thing about that crash is that it's not on the downbeat, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4. He hits it on the 4. Awesome hi-hat roll there at the end. Listen to your left speaker, how he hits that really, really fast there. Hear that? He's just hammering on that hi-hat for a split second. One more time. That's another cool moment where he plays through the start of the next measure. So what I mean by that is like when, you know, if you don't know, a measure in music is like, that's a unit of time. And so the new measure starts, but he starts a drum solo and he plays through into the next measure. So you'll hear the synth come in, but he's still playing even when that synth comes in. So when the synth comes in, that's like a sign that the new measure has started and we've entered a new section of the song. But take a listen. Still playing, then right here. So when I said here, that's when the new measure starts, and you can hear the song open up. You can hear like the gospel synth. It sounds like a gospel synth playing. Could be actual background vocals, but I don't think it is. I think it's actually just like a synth. But then there's a little bit of bass that comes in too, and so the song just you can feel that whenever it opens up, even if you don't know exactly what I'm talking about. And then if you pay attention to the drums, he's still playing his solo through that transition. One more time. Right here. So it goes like so after the start. That's super cool. It's a really cool way to make the it's a cool way to both emphasize the transition but make that transition like, I'm not even sure what that does. Again, I'm not a drummer, and so the theory behind that, to me, it's like we've entered a new stage, but we haven't lost the intensity, and in fact, we're building on the intensity, right? Like we're gonna just play through that new measure. So while he's doing the drum solo, your ear is following along with the 1, 2, 3, 4 count of the song, even if you don't know the theory, right? You are naturally following along with it. So you know when we've hit the next section, like the end of the measure and the start of a new measure. And so when that synth comes in, you are following along with that subconsciously. And so it feels like, like you feel that elevation, right? But then the drums keep playing, and so there's this kind of like intensity to it that's like, oh wow, like this is really cool. Even if you can't explain why it's really cool. So yeah, rather than the drums accentuating that change by playing through it, it almost makes it a little bit more impactful without losing the intensity, right? You feel that? Like that? And then let's keep listening. Really cool. I don't know what, I think it sounds like a china on the right ear there that he hits. Really cool tom roller. Or actually it's a dun 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 da. That's what it is. Da da dun 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 da. Right here. Yeah. Another thing I want to point out is like, none of this seems to be repeated either. So it's all so composed and deliberate, and it just keeps going and growing and moving, and it just, I love it. I love it so much. You know, there's so many songs these days that just have like the same boring trap beat or like the same 4 on the floor drums. Like everything Chappell Roan releases is just garbage, right? You know, on a drumming level, and people just don't seem to understand how awesome it can be to have a great drummer, and what that can lend to the energy and the intensity of your music. You know, I think Avenged Sevenfold is a great example of this. Like you listen to anything that the Rev did and it was just revolutionary, right? But then even their newer stuff with Brooks Wackerman, it's all just so on point. And I think people have just completely forgotten how wonderful drums can be. Like having a real drummer who knows percussion and knows how to build, they just don't know what they're missing out on half the time, you know? And this is a perfect example of that. I really, again, I want to emphasize, these are like award-winning drums. They're fantastic. Let's finish it out because I want to kind of get my drum rant over, and then we can talk about the other elements of this. But I just love these drums so much. They're the best best drum section on the entire album, for sure. So we're gonna get a nice tom roll into the second chorus. So that's a triplet tom roll there. So if you don't know, triplets are 3 notes per beat. So if you got like 1, 2, 3, it's da 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 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3, right? And so he goes on the snare. He does 2 sets of triplets. So da 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 da. Or I don't know exactly how many, but he does the snare and then moves to the toms and then stops for a quick second before slamming back down into the chorus. So it's like da 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 da. Let's listen to that again. Yeah, boom, and that's really awesome too because of how busy this drum section is for the whole verse. To have that tom roll or to have that triplet roll into the pause, it's very noticeable. It's not quite as busy. I know it's like it seems like it's very fast, but it's actually not as busy. It's easier for the listener to like grab onto that. And then when he stops, it really leaves an impact because of how much he was doing before. And which is perfect because then this second chorus is heavy. So yeah, I'm not a drummer. I can't break down everything that he's doing, but I can break down a lot of it. I hope that this maybe showed you a few little small things that you might not have noticed, but this is just top tier drumming. And yeah, he deserves an award for this or something. I mean, he needs to be recognized for this. This is beyond just being like cool or above average. This is very high level musical drumming. It's fantastic. We need more drumming like this in music. So cool stuff.